Me? Hi, everybody. How's it going today? We're just going to sit tight for a few minutes, see who's going to join us, and then we are going to jump into a very, very important topic that I am very excited to talk about, that I am passionate about, because it really, really just had such a deep and profound impact on my life that I am very, very excited to share this with you. I take a sip of my water. There. All right, you ready? Let's jump in. Let's do this. And if you're listening to the recording, which most of you are, awesome, 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 awesome. Don't forget, you can join me live. You can ask me questions. I'm really excited. So let's. I'm going to jump in with the punchline. There is no such thing as bad habits, and you don't have any bad parts of you. You know, when you say like, "Oh, I hate this part of me," you have no bad parts, no bad parts. And don't believe me, because that sounds pretty ridiculous when you first hear it. But I promise you're going to see some of the science and practical evidence that supports that reality. My name is Craig Pera. I'm the founder of the Mindful Habits System. I'm an addict who struggled for my life with sex, porn, alcohol, drugs. The list goes on and on. And nothing worked. I kept getting worse and worse until I hit rock bottom, and that forced me to do things differently and pull from an existing skill set that I had. And that low point gave birth to the Mindful Habits System. And for the past 12 years, I've been helping men break free and stay free from compulsive sexual behavior. And part of staying free is understanding the reality of the human condition. Today, I want to talk about the principles, the reality behind the statement there that there is no such thing as bad habits. Now, if you're listening to this, that obviously sounds ridiculous. The chance of like you listening to this podcast and not having bad habits is ridiculously slim. So I want to start with that acknowledgement. If you are listening to me now and you hear the comment that there's no such thing as bad habits, I recognize that that might sound absolutely preposterous. And feel free to let me know in the chat if the hearing the statement that you don't have any bad parts and no bad habits makes no sense. I accept that. When I first understood the concept, but let me first when I first understood the concept, it was like earth shattering to me. It changed everything because if you don't understand human behavior, how can you change it? So let me tell you what it's not, right? The statement, no bad habits, no bad parts. That does not mean that you do not have habits that are producing terrible outcomes. I am certain that if you're listening to this broadcast, you have habits that are producing terrible outcomes. You typically call those bad habits, but keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. And there are probably parts of yourself that you hate. You might hate your addict part, right? The part of you that takes over, hijacks reality, does things that you don't want to do. If you're listening to this broadcast, you likely have a part that lies, hides, compartmentalizes, lacks empathy. You might have a part that feels like a worthless piece of garbage. You might have a part that calls yourself every time you make a mistake, you stupid piece of shit. Might have a part that gets angry. You might have a part that is experiencing resentment with your partner. And so, what do I mean when I say there are no bad parts? Because obviously, everything that I just mentioned sounds bad. The habits, the lying, the compartmentalizing, the acting out, the numbing, coping, and escaping behaviors, those sound all bad. They sound all bad. But when we say bad, we mean we're bad. And I want to show you, I want to prove to you today that you can alter your perspective of your bad habits and your bad parts. And in doing so, by changing your relationship with reality in an accurate way, this produces significantly more self-control, and you feel a heck of a lot better about yourself. So that's what no bad habits, no bad parts is not. Now, what is it? Let me start with the golden rule. Well, the golden rules of behavior modification. So let's talk about these bad habits: getting angry, acting out, shutting down, getting defensive. Here's something I want to start with, and I invite you to embrace my challenge. I want to start with the principle that all behavior is need-seeking behavior. All behavior is need-seeking behavior. All behavior is need-seeking behavior, okay? What I mean by that is that all of your bad habits, if we were to make a list of, let's start with your acting out behavior, okay? All of our behaviors, need-seeking behavior, and to break a habit, you have to make the right habit that meets the right need. Now, I want to give you 4 very specific reasons why this is going to click for you and to help you understand this concept. But before I get there, I want to highlight, so let's say your bad habit is lying about using sex to emotionally and physically regulate, okay? You're using pleasure to escape pain. And that's a bad habit causing bad outcomes in your life. But that bad habit, first of all, you don't have control over that bad habit. So it's a capacity issue. And let's unpack that behavior. That behavior is doing something for you. That behavior is meeting ridiculously important needs. And let me know if you're here and you have any questions. Put it in the chat. We're going to get to the 4 reasons that I hope explain this better. But the reality is that your behavior is meeting very important needs. And these needs were, these bad habits, these parts of you, the addict part, was trained to meet these needs. All behavior is a trained conditioned response. Every reaction, me picking up this water bottle, me moving this microphone, imagine a baby picking up a water bottle. Imagine a baby having the dexterity to just slightly move this a teeny tiny bit without knocking it over. They can't, because what wired together hasn't fired together yet. They haven't built the habit to react that way. And the reality is, when we're talking about sexually compulsive behavior, and this isn't an excuse. Sometimes I feel like when I'm talking about this capacity issue for guys, it feels like it's an excuse, but it's not. If you could, you would, but you can't. Why can't you? Because the habit runs so deep. Your trained conditioned response is, when this bad thing's happen, this is how I'm going to escape from that bad thing. When I feel distress, when I feel angry, when my body is experiencing the physiology of fear, what do? I numb, cope, and escape. So that bad habit is meeting a need. It's helping you numb, cope, and escape. It's doing something for you. It's serving a purpose. And the same is true for the different parts of you: the angry part, the liar part, the addict part. All trained conditioned responses. The parts work gives us a container to do something about it. Anybody that's done lots of therapy, or I'll speak for myself, who I've done a lot of therapy, which is awesome. Highly, highly recommend it for everybody. But my challenge was, what do you do with all that awareness? The parts work gives you a framework to manage, nurture, control these parts of you in a healthy, constructive way. So if you've never heard of parts work, highly recommend you learn more about the mindful habit system. Go back and listen to some of my podcasts. Check out my YouTube videos. Watch some videos on the internal family systems model. And the book that I recommend is by Dr. Richard Schwartz, called No Bad Parts. So All behavior is need-seeking behavior. To break a habit, you have to make the right habit that meets the right needs. Before we get into those four things, I want to say one more thing first. The other principle of behavior modification is you will always lose in a fight against yourself. You will always lose in a fight against yourself. You are not going to beat yourself into compliance. Doesn't work for kids, doesn't work for grown-ups, doesn't work for ourselves. Creates poor outcomes. So that part of you hate, that addict part is a trained, conditioned response, meeting needs, doing what it was trained to do. And for some of us, there is a lot to escape from. For some of us, there's a lot to escape from today. You are suffering. There is likely, if you're listening to this broadcast, there is an incredible amount of pain in your life. Crippling low self-esteem. You feel like a worthless piece of crap. Even that part is meeting a need? Yes. That's for another broadcast. That'll take me a little more time to unpack, but it is. That internal critic that's shaming you, beating yourself up, trying to make sure you never do the thing again. Is that part meeting a need? Oh, yes, it is. Now, it doesn't mean it's accomplishing that need. Clearly, right? Clearly, it's not meeting the need. You need to learn how to meet needs proactively. You need to learn how to meet these needs in a healthy, constructive way. You have to create capacity to do that. I love that word. Because when you can't control yourself, you don't have capacity. The work that you do with your therapist and the mindful habit, whatever program you're in, the books you're trying to read, listening to me right now, you're trying to create capacity. Understanding the human condition, understanding the reality that we have these different parts of ourselves and beating those parts up and shaming those parts doesn't make it better, but it makes it worse. That's critical. Critical. By understanding this, you instantly have more compassion for yourself, and you instantly have an ability to create more self-control. So let's talk about and please, if you're listening live, I know we got a few people here on the various platforms, put your questions in the chat. I would love for this to be a dynamic back and forth opportunity to answer questions. I hope more people continue to join me live. I could easily record this and upload it, but I want to do it live because when we do have people on, I love the engagement and I love your questions. So please put them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. So 4 reasons why no bad habits, no bad parts. Number 1, every part has a positive intent. Like we talked about, our parts are meeting needs. According to the internal family systems model, no matter how it appears, every part has a positive intent for the individual. Every part has a positive intent for the individual. This means your addict part has a positive intent. What does your addict part want you to do? Wants to give you a reward, wants to help you escape, wants to help you feel better, right? Overeating. What is that doing? Feeling good. Makes you feel better. Drowns your sorrows. Helps you manage stress, the physiology of fear. Every part has a positive intent. What might be labeled as a bad habit, like procrastination or overeating or acting out sexually, is the part's way of protecting the individual from pain or discomfort. Understanding this can shift our perspective from judgment to curiosity and compassion, reducing self-criticism and improving self-esteem. That's a lot. Understanding the positive intent that your parts have is critical. It's reality. This isn't like I'm making this up and I'm trying to, give you rainbows and unicorns. Hey, turn that frown upside down, brother, sister who's listening. Focus on the positive. This isn't that. This is reality. The reality is that every part has a positive intent. And how have you been treating that part? How have you been treating that part? How have you been treating your addict part? What does that self-dialogue look like? What's the back and forth? How are you beating yourself up? Remember, you will always lose in a fight against yourself. You will always lose in a fight against yourself. Number 2, our parts are in roles due to our experiences. Parts that take on extreme roles due to past experience, especially those from childhood. The more trauma, the more extreme the behavior. A part that pushes us to perfectionism or avoidance isn't inherently bad, but is trying to protect us based on its understanding of the world. Remember, your parts, your habits, trained, conditioned responses. I throw a ball and catch at your face, your hand reaches up and you grab it. That is a trained, conditioned response. I bump into you on the sidewalk or swerve over to you in the car and you react, that is a trained, conditioned response. You learn that behavior. That is environmental behavior that sits on top of your biology. Okay, so our parts are in roles due to our experiences. Recognizing this helps in fostering self-understanding and empathy towards ourselves, diminishing feelings of inadequacy or guilt. When I finally, and this sounds ridiculous, if you are listening to this too early in your journey and you're hearing these words, I'm going to lose all credibility right now. And that's okay. I speak truth. You'll come back and you'll get it. It'll rattle around in there and eventually it'll stick. My addict part is trying to help. My addict part is trying to help. Do you mean the part that I beat up, the part that I shamed, the part that I wanted to kill? Yes, that is exactly what I mean. My addict part is trying to help. When I learned that, my head exploded. I'd been in self-help for a long time. I'd actually been helping people for a long time. I knew about the perils of self-deprecation, negative self-talk. There's no such thing as bad habits, but the notion that my addict part was trying to help, that was revelatory. Massive, massive, massive. It was for me, and it will be for you when you get there. All right? Really, really, really important concept. So let's look at it from a results perspective. Number 3, change comes from understanding, not condemnation. You will always lose in a fight against yourself. Labeling habits or parts of ourselves as bad can lead to a cycle, does often lead to a cycle of shame and self-criticism. This is counterproductive to growth and healing. This makes it worse. The more you beat up on yourself, the more you shame yourself, the worse it gets. The worse it gets. Does anyone here has experienced, hey, this shame program I'm in? And listen, I've seen this. I've seen videos online of guys going to boot camps and going to retreats. Listen, our approach is very different. We just had our retreat in Half Moon Bay, California. 16 men flew in from all over the country. They said it was one of the most powerful experiences of their lives. And some of these guys have been through hundreds of retreats. We lift you up. That doesn't mean we don't talk about difficult things. Of course we do. That's critical. We lift you up. Shame begets more shame. Change comes from understanding, not condemnation. This approach, this perspective, this reality encourages acceptance and kindness to all parts of ourselves. Why? Because you will always lose in a fight with yourself. So let me just recap. We got some new people who joined the call. Every part has a positive intent. That includes your addict part, your liar part, your unworthy piece of crap part, your resentful part, your angry part, your you name it. Every part has a positive intent. Number two, parts are in these roles because due to their experiences. Our parts are trained, conditioned responses. Our reactions are trained, conditioned responses. The thoughts that we have, the belief systems that we slap onto an experience are trained, conditioned responses. Therefore, our parts are in these roles due to their environmental training sitting on top of biology. Okay? Number three, change comes from understanding, not condemnation. Labeling a self bad, labeling a part bad, demonizing a part makes it worse. The goal is self-leadership, right? Think of that concept, self-leadership. You worthless piece of garbage. If you do that again, you're terrible. You're bad. You're exactly what they say about you. You're never going to be successful. Is that self-leadership under any circumstances? Is that self-leadership under any circumstances? No. Does that make it better? No. Shame begets shame. Shame makes it worse. And last but not least, and a hello to Rob, who's joining us live. Good friend, good fan. Welcome, brother. Hope all is well. The concept of bad is based on social constructs. What a society labels as a bad habit is subjective and culturally dependent. For example, a habit deemed unproductive in one context might be seen as a form of self-care or survival in another context. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Okay? So I've had clients come to me in a state of acute emotional distress. I am telling you, on the verge of a nervous breakdown. This is going to prove to you how powerful this behavior is. When this happens, it's typical that the man was working with a religious therapist who was pushing him to curtail his porn use. It was a sin. It was bad. It was obviously making things terrible in his relationship. So it would make sense to do that if you viewed this complicated problem through the narrow prism of sex and porn addiction. Get rid of the porn, everything gets better. But here's the reality, and this is why these guys find themselves to me, and I'm not the guy for them at this low point. Let me tell you, we're going to refer them out to an intensive outpatient often or therapy multiple times a week. The reality is, for these men who are on the brink of an emotional, who are having suicidal ideations, who are severely depressed, severely anxious, they're unraveling. They're unraveling. But guess what? And listen, this sounds crazy. The porn is the thread keeping it all together. The PMO is the thread keeping it all together. Meaning, it is such a powerful coping strategy. When guys try to remove it too early because they've hit a low point, they crumble. They have panic attacks. They have mental health breakdowns. They now have to miss work. They now might need to be hospitalized because that provider did not address the deeper underlying issues. All behavior is need-seeking behavior. The escape, the release, the calm, the focus, the reward, whatever it was, the combination of everything it was so important to this mentally ill man, so impactful that by removing it too early, you did not make the situation better, you made the situation worse. And I know that may not be you, but you're somewhere on the spectrum. Even if this behavior is self-harming, even if this behavior is causing terrible things to happen in your life, it is serving a purpose. It is meeting a need. It is meeting a need the way it was trained to meet a need. And let's just talk about that need for a second. Let's talk about that need for a second. When did we first learn to use pleasure to escape pain? Think about that for a second. When did you first use pleasure to escape pain? A lot of people say when I talk to them, hey, this started in, puberty, a little post-puberty. We have been trained to hide touching ourselves since our arms first reached our penis. Don't touch that. Don't do that. Slap on the hand. Go in your room. Do this someplace else. That's bad. Da da da. Whatever. Right? Don't do it. But what did we do when no one was looking? We did it. And what happened? We felt shame about it. And to escape from that feeling of shame, we did it more. Right? And now I'm talking about in puberty. Right? Now puberty comes and no training, no learning, no education, no, hey, you're about to have this powerful force that like builds empires and destroys them inside you. And you need to learn how to control that and how to manage that. And doing so is ridiculously hard. No, none of us got that. And most people still don't have it today. So using pleasure to escape pain goes back to your childhood. And I argue that it is the oldest, it is I want to be 100% accurate. It is one of your oldest and most impactful habits. Not just doing it, lying about it. So doing it is one thing. Using pleasure to escape pain, that went back to your earliest childhood developmental years, right? Before memory. That's how far back it goes. It is a trained, conditioned response meeting needs. And so to break a habit, you have to make the right habits that meet the right needs. So let me know if you have any questions. We're going to wrap this up in a second. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I want to change the way you think about yourself. I want to change the way you think about your parts. I want you to see your bad habits, not as bad habits, but coping strategies that are no longer as effective as they once were. Because you're not bad. Your parts aren't bad. There's nothing bad about you. You are creating bad outcomes and you feel bad. I get that. But calling yourself bad is like shame. Doesn't make it better, makes it worse. It doesn't make it better, it makes it worse. If you're looking to learn more about this, obviously I got more podcasts on it. The book is No Bad Habits. The book by Dr. Richard Schwartz is called No Bad Parts. If you're not inclined to book, go onto YouTube, check out some basic videos regarding the internal family systems model, and go watch the Pixar movie Inside Out. And the number 2 is coming out, I think, in June. That's the movie with the teenage girl who has the characters are the parts in her head. Right? Those parts are serving a purpose. Those parts are meeting needs. Those parts are reacting the way they were trained. Those parts are reacting the way they were trained. So when you're home alone, maybe you hear that door shut, right? So deeply entrenched. I still feel it today. The door shuts, instant energy shift in the body from positive to negative. Like the gopher pops out of the hole. I'm free. Like it's Mel Gibson in Braveheart. Freedom! I can do whatever I want. I'm finally free. But here's the thing. Most people in the beginning of this journey say, oh, I'm bored. Listen, there's nobody throwing their marriage away because they're bored. It's not because you're bored. It's because you can't be by yourself. You can't sit by yourself in your thoughts because they go dark too quick and you believe them. That's what you're escaping from. You're escaping from an abandonment issue, abandonment issues. You're escaping from an innate sense of worthlessness. We all have it. It's part of the human condition. Part of the human condition. It's the way it is. But the parts work gives you a framework to do something about it. Okay? Now, we've had just a bunch of people jump on this live, and I'm about to wrap up. But if anybody has any questions before I do, I would love to answer them. So feel free to put them in the chat. I think I can even bring you on, too. Does anybody have any questions about the concept that there are no bad habits, no bad parts? Now, obviously, if you want to do a deep dive, visit mindfulhabithelp.com. We've got very powerful exercises, very powerful testimonials, and very powerful programs for the right person. All right. Let's see who's watching me here. Rob's watching me on Twitch. Who's here? A couple guys from Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. And here's my parting words, guys, on social media. It's poison. It's even more poisonous than I initially thought, because even if you're listening to good, positive things, it, for most people, creates this illusion of accomplishment, but does not produce actual change. So the question that you have to ask yourself, are you using social media as in a healthy way to connect? Go for it. The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. Keep connecting. Yay on you. Number two, are you using social media as a healthy way to entertain? I mean, who doesn't love a puppy video, the marbles racing, like there's the machines that the ball goes down, and like whatever you like, right? Obviously, there's some really cool stuff. But if you're using it to entertain, you got to be real specific, I think, right? You got to be, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to entertain it. Sometimes I'll stream it to the television, and that way my wife Michelle and the kids can participate in what I'm watching. So if it's entertaining, great. Is it leading to unhealthy behaviors, and am I getting caught in thirst traps? Brothers, here's the reality. We're not wired for it. We're just not. We're just not. And the overwhelming majority of people, the less screen time, the quality of lives go up. So I just want to put that out there, okay? So really take that to heart. You do not need to know everything that's going on in every part of the world. You do not need to be that news cycle. I'm going to do another podcast on that. You don't need to know. You really don't. Some of my best advice is to go local. Go local. Focus on your environment. Thank you, Rob. I'm glad you got value, brother. Just reading Rob's comments, so worth it. Go local. And the more you do that, the more you focus on your community, issues that really make an impact, that you feel passionate about, that you feel good about yourself, issues that impact you, your life gets profoundly better. So be very, very mindful using social media. We're not wired for it. Very, very unhealthy. One more chance for a question before we drop off today. Anybody? All right, great. Thank you so much for listening. Welcome to Sex Afflictions and Porn Addictions. Visit mindfulhabithelp.com if you need more help. Wish you well. Feed the right wolf. Embrace your power of choice. And I'll